All right. Welcome to Investment Banking Insights. This is the only show dedicated to helping you learn both the technical and non-technical aspects of the investment banking process. Hello, my name is Alex Mason and I am your host. And today we're going to talk about recruiting for locations outside of New York City. Now, as you probably know, most of the jobs in investment banking in the US are centered in New York City. That's where Wall Street is. That's where the biggest deals get done. But there are actually a good number of investment banking internships and full-time positions that are outside of New York City. And if you're thinking about recruiting for any of those locations, there's a couple of things that you need to know. First off, you should know the lay of the land. So New York City is, of course, the epicenter of financial activity in the United States, at least as of now when I'm recording this. It still is, it always has been, but you have a lot of other hubs. So there are four major cities in terms of investment banking activity in the US: New York City, San Francisco in California, Chicago in Illinois, and Houston, Texas. And then also I would include Charlotte in there as well, is also pretty big. You got Bank of America headquartered there, Wells Fargo headquartered there. So there's a lot of banking activity in Charlotte too. In terms of other cities to consider, there's also some investment banking activity here and there in Los Angeles. There's also some in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Richmond, Virginia, some in Boston as well. It's just that in those locations, the number of firms and the number of roles available are much smaller, and then the firms that are in those locations tend to have smaller offices, but they are hiring investment bankers. They're just not hiring like dozens and dozens of them. So there's going to come a point in time in your interview process when you're going to get asked the question, why do you want to work here, right? In terms of not just the company, but why do you want to work in Chicago? Why do you want to be in San Francisco? Why do you want to be in Houston? And those are legitimate questions because firms know that most candidates are shooting for jobs in New York City, right? That's the goal for many people. That's like the dream. They imagine being literally on Wall Street and, walking through the halls with the pillars and everything with the fancy suit. Like that's what a lot of candidates envision. But if you're interviewing for a job in Chicago, like you might be on Wacker Drive, you might be in a totally different place with a totally different culture. So how you answer this question is critically important. Here's what not to say. Don't say, well, I'm really open to working in Chicago, or you know what, I'm really open to working anywhere. I'm pretty location agnostic. No, don't do it. Please don't do that. I've heard people do this in interviews, and it, I know, has killed their chances of working in that location. Think about how that sounds to the interviewer, someone who lives in San Francisco or lives in Chicago or lives in Houston. They have their families there, they've built their lives there, and for someone to come in and say, yeah, I'm location agnostic, it's projecting that you don't care about where they are, right? You don't have that connection. So that's what not to do. And then in terms of what to do, think about how to connect yourself to that location in a way that's genuine and in a way that you can clearly communicate. I'll just give my example. Like, I'm going to Chicago. I love Chicago genuinely as a city. I have lived there with my family before, loved it. I have family there. I personally prefer it over New York City, honestly, in terms of just lifestyle, culture, things to do in the city. It's just more aligned with the way that I want to live my life. And so that's what I communicated in my interview with the good folks at Lincoln. Be genuine about it. So obviously if you have a strong connection, you have family there, you've worked there before, you've lived there before, those are pretty strong connections because that's evidence, objective evidence that shows that yes, like I'm aligned with this location. But what if you don't have that? What do you do? So what I would suggest is focus very strongly on your interest, your passions, your research on that location, on that region, because you want to connect with the culture. If you're recruiting for Houston investment banking, for example, Have you ever visited Houston before? Do you know what the culture is like? Maybe you went to the rodeo with your friends. And if you're from Houston, you know what I'm talking about. If you are recruiting San Francisco, like, have you spent time in the Bay Area? Do you have friends there? What do you like about the culture? Maybe the art scene or the music scene, or like find something that genuinely you're passionate about that connects to that place that is different than New York City, right? That's the key thing, because you don't want to say something and then the interviewer say, oh, well, yeah, they have that in New York City too. So like, what's so special to you about here where we're at? Find a connection between yourself and that place that is real and genuine. That's really the answer. So here's the good news with recruiting for non-NYC locations. Because a lot of candidates are so focused on New York City, I think that there is actually less competition for some of those roles in these other cities in general. Now, of course, you're going for a highly vetted bank. Everyone's going to want to work for that bank, no matter what office it is. Generally speaking, people are clamoring to get into New York City more so than they are clamoring to get into a Charlotte or a Houston or something like that. So keep that in mind. So therein lies your potential competitive advantage as a candidate. If you feel very powerfully, very strongly about a particular location, that's going to come through in your interviews and in your conversations with bankers in that location. And that can really help you in your recruiting journey, because guess what? If there's 10 candidates recruiting for that city and the bankers sit in their room and they're deciding who they want to extend an offer to, if there's 2 of those candidates who are like, yes, I want to be here, here's why, I would rather be here than anywhere else, including New York City, then that says a lot, right? There's a lot of conviction there. So don't underestimate the power of your own conviction, and do some soul searching and just really be honest with yourself. Do I want to be here? Can I imagine myself building my career here, at least for a few years, versus just feeling like, yeah, I just want an investment banking job, I don't care where it is. That kind of attitude is likely going to get you cut at these non-New York City banks and offices. Fake it till you make it doesn't work. And I would say just don't go down that road, but focus on how you genuinely connect with the people, the place, and the culture. And that's going to go a lot further for you than not. So that's what we got here for you today, here on Investment Banking Insights. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. And I am 2 weeks away from graduating, so I will no longer be recording in the studio pretty soon. It's a little bit amazing that this journey here is coming to an end, but I'm excited for the next chapter. And yeah, take care, and I'll see you next time.